So the article there, you should check it out in JNS. And the title of the article is Biden Administration Support for Israel Dwindling, Majority of Israeli Jews Say. And the subtitle says over 70% of Israeli Jews feel that U.S. President Joe Biden's support has declined in months. If you read and unpack that article, you'll see that the vast majority of Israelis, regardless to how they feel about Netanyahu, are standing with the campaign to both destroy Hamas, and the majority of Israelis are in favor of then taking care of Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? And then I shared this before. Caroline Glick, a friend and colleague, amazing. Check her podcast out, In Focus. One of the things that Caroline shared a few weeks ago, this stat, when polled, when Israelis were asked about whether or not they were now still or are in favor of a two-state solution, 92% of Israeli Jews said no, not in favor of two-state solution. And 87% of Israeli Jews and Arabs, which I believe someone put the percentage at of 85 or so, which would, the calculation would be some 80+% of Israeli Arabs said no. Those are astronomical numbers when it comes to political or polls, ladies and gentlemen. The Biden administration continues to try to pit Netanyahu and his leadership in Likud. And let me pause here. We are not, the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel does not exist to support Benjamin Netanyahu or Yair Lapid or Benny Gantz or anybody's party. We don't get involved in Israeli politics, right? The Israelis debate that themselves, and they're really pretty good at it, right? Did you see all those protests after the election of 2022 in October? Yeah, the Israelis are going to make their voices known. The Biden administration keeps trying to characterize both the war in Gaza and plans to even expand and have to deal with Israel's enemies as Netanyahu, right-wing, fascist, blah, blah, blah. When you're talking about the 90 percentile of Israeli Jews and the 80 percentile of Israeli Arabs are in favor of what's actually happening, I don't know if you get much more of a mandate. That's about, come on, ladies and gentlemen, what you want, 100%? They want Hamas removed. The Israelis want Hamas removed. And the Biden administration's attempt to try to paint this as some sort of Netanyahu propaganda or his title, like a Netanyahu campaign, is weak and failing, and it is exposing the fissures, right? Because the talking points at some point in the U.S. have to reflect what the Israelis are saying, not who's trying to force the Israelis to accept yada, yada, yada. We've talked about this in the contents of Africa, and we've talked about how our government will try to force things. I wrote an article a few months ago now. Timeline's really bad. And the title of it was Cultural Imperialism, how the U.S., something along the lines of the targeting of African Christian nations for LGBTQ rights, meaning that the United States is slapping, I think called sanctions or whatever, on nations like Uganda and others for their anti-gay marriage laws, for their anti-homosexuality laws, while saying nothing to other nations like Iran, who kills gays, Qatar, who kills gays, right? So if you're going to actually fight for the LGBTQ community, at least have some integrity and some sort of consistency and act that way with everyone. No, they're singling out Black, African, Christian nations, while other nations, which those anti-gay laws are even more draconian, they're saying nothing to them. And what's the point that we're making? That's the United States not actually defending human rights, right? That's the United States using its power manipulatively for whatever its goals are. And that's what this administration is attempting to do to Israel.